Om Akhandam Satchidanandam Avang Manasagocharam Atmanam Akhiladharam Ashrayebhishta Siddhai. I take refuge in the self, the indivisible, the existence, consciousness, bliss absolute, beyond the reach of words and thought, and the substratum of all for the attainment of my cherished desire. So we were on text number 143, which goes like this. If you look at text number 143, Abhyam adhyaropa apavadabhyam tattvam padartha shodhanam api siddham bhavati. By this process of superimposition and desuperimposition, the precise significance of that and thou is clearly determined. So this marks the beginning of a very, very important section, maybe the most important section in Vedantasara. What is that? The analysis of the great saying of the Mahavakya, the great sentence, that thou art. What has been accomplished till now? We have done superimposition and desuperimposition. Adhyaropa apavada. What are these? This is the central method of teaching in Advaita Vedanta. Superimposition and desuperimposition. What is this all about? Superimposition, desuperimposition is it's like making an error and correcting it. So suppose someone makes an error, not deliberately, but one falls into the error of thinking that a rope is a snake. Does not know the rope, thinks it's a snake, with all consequent ill effects. And then that part is called superimposition. And that's Advaita Vedanta claim is that's exactly what is happening here. There is this ultimate reality, existence, consciousness, bliss, which, like the rope being mistaken for a snake, is being mistaken for this world, for this universe, our present experience of the universe. This is like the snake born of error. This is called adhyaropa, or superimposition, taking something to be what it is not. Now you have to reverse this. Why do you have to reverse this? Why do you have to correct it? Because we are suffering. First of all, it's false. So we must know the truth, whatever the ultimate consequence of that. And also, because of dwelling in this falsity is the source of our suffering. And to get out of suffering, to attain fulfillment, the claim of Advaita Vedanta is that the goal is that overcoming suffering and attainment of fulfillment. To get that, we have to correct this error. Just like seeing the so-called snake is nothing but the rope, similarly, realizing the so-called universe is nothing but Brahman, existence, consciousness, bliss. That is called desuperimposition, apavada. And this has been accomplished. This has been shown. Till now we saw all of that we have been doing for the past few months is how from an absolute reality appears this error, illusion, false understanding of this universe. And then how it is again seen to be, this universe itself is seen to be Brahman, how the rope is discovered again and the error about the rope is corrected. And I have given a number of examples. There are many, many stories in Vedanta to illustrate this, in Advaita Vedanta. I gave a talk recently using some of those classic stories. The whole story about the Emperor Janaka, is that true or is this true? The whole dream and then the correction of the dream. So that is about superimposition and desuperimposition. If you remember the story about the donkey, which was they pretended to tie the donkey and then pretended to untie it. The pretending to tie it is superimposition, pretending to untie it is desuperimposition. Or the story about the princess of Kashi, and when the prince realizes that there is no princess of Kashi apart from him, he alone is the princess of Kashi. So this is called the superimposition and desuperimposition. All these stories are to illustrate that one central method of teaching, this superimposition, desuperimposition. Now, what he's saying now is that by this, what we have accomplished is we can now understand the meanings of the terms of the words that and thou in the sentence that thou art. So what is this switch happening? What's happening now? Where are we going? You see, Advaita Vedanta can be expressed in very simple terms, in very direct terms. What does Advaita Vedanta teach? It teaches that thou art, Tattvamasi, you are Brahman. So the sentences in the Upanishads which express the central teaching of Advaita Vedanta, the whole point of this exercise, such sentences are called the great sentences, Mahavakya. They are used to summarize the entire teaching of Advaita Vedanta. And 4 of these sentences have been taken as representative of the 4 Vedas. Tattvamasi, that thou art, from the Chandogya Upanishad, which is from the Sama Veda. Prajnanam Brahma, this very consciousness is Brahman, that is from the Aitareya Upanishad, which is from the Rig Veda. Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, which is from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, which is from the Yajur Veda. And then Ayam Atma Brahma, this very self is Brahman, which is from the Mandukya Upanishad, the Atharva Veda. So the 4 Vedas, Upanishads from these Vedas, and one sentence, which all of these sentences tell you the same thing. They all talk about the identity, not even unity. Unity, often we say unity of God and man, but it's identity of the sentient being, the Jiva, individual, and of Ishvara or Saguna Brahman, the identity, the oneness. So that is the central teaching of Advaita Vedanta. Another way in which this whole thing has been put is Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya Jiva Brahmeva Napara. This is a famous saying, like representative saying of Advaita Vedanta. Brahman alone is the reality, the world is an appearance, and you are none other than Brahman. So these 4 Mahavakyas, they express the same thing. Among them, the most famous is that thou art in the Chandogya Upanishad. And usually when teaching Advaita Vedanta, it is that one, that thou art, Tattvamasi, which is taken up for analysis. But the same process which we will go through now, you can use it for the other Mahavakyas, the other great sentences. And by the way, it's not that just these 4 sentences which are Mahavakyas. There are many more. But these 4 are just taken as representative, just to, like showing that these Vedas and these Upanishads, they all teach the same thing. Again, from an Advaita Vedanta perspective, the dualistic school, Advaita Vedanta, or the other schools of Vedanta, they do not give all this overwhelming importance. They don't call them Mahavakyas, for example. They will give some interpretation, which is not the interpretation which we are learning now. Imagine the great claim that is being made here. The claim that is being made by Advaita Vedanta is that you are Brahman, you are the absolute reality of the world. And the whole point of this superimposition, desuperimpposition, the underlying claim is that what we know about ourselves now is a big, big mistake. We are in great error. Now, the only thing that you can do to an error is to correct it. And the only way you can correct an error is by knowledge. And the only way you get knowledge is by inquiry. So see what huge implications it has for spiritual life, for religion. What is the problem? The problem is one of ignorance, not of sin, not of being caught in the bondage of karma or whatever, whichever way you put it. It's basically a problem of ignorance, and ignorance about our real nature. If that is so, then what is the solution? In spiritual life, what should we seek? We should seek knowledge. We should seek knowledge about our reality. Not mystic experiences, not bhakti, not even doing good to others. All those things become secondary. So just look at the huge implication of what we are trying to study here. Then what will be the practice? What will be the practice in Advaita Vedanta? The practice will be inquiry, because we want knowledge. And inquiry means studying these texts, Shravana, thinking about them, trying to understand what is being said here, and then making it a vivid realization. Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Systematically studying them, thinking about it, getting clarity, conviction, and then making it a vivid, living realization. That's the spiritual practice then. It is not, whether you sit cross-legged or stand on one leg. whether you do this ritual or that ritual. It's not whether you have schools and colleges and hospitals to help poor people. It's not even whether you have devotion and faith in God. None of those. Not that they are wrong. They are all there. We all know that those play a secondary role. They can help, and they must be there in our lives. They prepare us for this realization. So I'm just trying to impress upon you the huge implications of this kind of knowledge for our spiritual life. It's truly radical, actually. Okay. Now, what will happen is, he's saying that all the exercise that we went through till now, superimposition and desuperimposition, whatever we learned, will help us to understand that thou art. How will it help us to understand? It will help us to understand the meaning of that. It will then help us to understand the meaning of thou, tat and tvam. What is meant by that, and what is meant by you, thou, and how are the two the same, identical? So it will help us to understand that, it will help us to understand thou, and it will help us to understand the identity between the two. What will help us? Whatever we have gone through, we're going to deploy all that knowledge to understand that thou art. So this is what is starting now. In fact, in the traditional way of understanding Advaita Vedanta, a traditional scholar would basically say Advaita Vedanta is hermeneutics. It is interpretation of text. In Sanskrit, the term is mimamsa. Mimamsa means pujita vichara, reverential inquiry, and into the Vedic texts. Which text are we inquiring into? We are inquiring into that thou art. We're trying to understand the meaning of that. That is Advaita Vedanta. And now we have a more precise understanding of what is Advaita Vedanta. It is Tattvamasi, that thou art, or the other such sentences, and how to understand it. So that exercise is starting now. We are ready to understand that thou art. All that we studied till now, how did it help to understand that thou art? We'll quickly see now. Before we start the process of trying to understand that thou art has not started yet. It will start just a little later. But first of all, what do you mean that all that we did till now, superimposition and desuperimposition, will help us to understand that and thou? That was said in 143. Shodhanam siddham bhavati. Shodhanam means clarification. Clarification of what? Tat tvam padartha. The meanings of the word tat and tvam, that and thou, will be clarified. The clarification will be helped by all our studies till now, the superimposition and desuperimposition. Let's go into it and see how it's going to help to understand that thou art. So what's going to happen from now on for the rest of, almost the rest of the book, almost, except a little bit at the end, almost the rest of the book is inquiry into the meaning of that thou art. And that is the heart of Advaita Vedanta. So that's starting now. Tatha hi, it's text number 144. Ajnanadi samashtir etadupahitam sarvagyatwadi vishishtam chaitanyam etad anupahitam chaitatrayam taptaya pindavad ekatvena avabhasamanam tatpadavacyartho bhavati. To explain, collective ignorance and the rest, consciousness associated with it and endowed with omniscience, etc., as also the pure consciousness unassociated with any attribute, these three, when appearing as one, inseparable like a red-hot iron ball, become the primary meaning of the word that. Okay, that's a mouthful. What is the meaning of that? Consider the example he gives first. A red-hot iron ball. A red-hot iron ball. Imagine, like a ironworks foundry, like in a blast furnace or something. There's a ball of iron which has been heated up to, like it's red-hot now, glowing red-hot. Now, in that red-hot iron ball, there are these two things. The iron itself, which is cold and it's round, it's an iron ball. And there's fire, which is hot and glowing. So when you see the red-hot iron ball, it's actually two things together. There is it glows because of, not because of the iron, it glows because of the fire. It's round, round not because of fire. Fire is not round. It's the iron ball which is round. It's heavy, heavy not because of the fire. It's because of the iron which is heavy, and it's um, glowing and hot, so that light and heat comes from the fire, not from the iron. But all the mixture is presented as one. Similarly, when you say that, in that thou art, what is meant by that? The word that, it means Maya and all the products of Maya. Now we understand what he is meaning. Remember, all we read, Maya and all the products of Maya. What is Maya and all the products of Maya? Maya, you remember the definition of Maya, which cannot be expressed as existing, as non-existing, composed of three gunas, which is negated by knowledge, the definition which we did of Maya. So Maya, and what are the products of Maya? The five subtle elements, and the mind, the subtle body, and then the five gross elements, and the physical bodies, and this physical universe. All these are products of Maya. So that's one thing which is meant by that. Maya and all its products. Then, Tadupahita Chaitanyam, consciousness associated with Maya. What is consciousness associated with? Now you will see immediately how all this study of Vedantasara is immediately useful. Consciousness plus Maya is what? It is Ishvara, Saguna Brahman. Ishvara, God, Saguna Brahman, Ishvara. So consciousness limited by Maya is Ishvara. And further also you can say, consciousness limited by Maya plus the subtle universe, which is a product of Maya, is Hiranyagarbha. Consciousness limited by Maya and the subtle universe and the gross universe is Virat, or Vishwarupa. So that's also included in the word that. And what else is included? The ultimate reality, which is always there. But what is that ultimate reality? Vastu, remember when we started, superimposition, desuperimposition, it was said there is only one reality, like the rope. There is only one reality. What is that? Satchidananda Madvayam Brahma. That text one must memorize. Vastu Satchidananda Madvayam Brahma. Ajnanadi Sakala Jara Samuha Avastu. Vastu, reality. Reality is only existence, consciousness, bliss, non-dual Brahman. And then starting from ajnana, ignorance, etc., etc., means all the products of Maya. Everything is avastu, an appearance. So now the word that has these three components. One is the actual reality, that is Brahman, pure consciousness. Existence, consciousness, bliss, non-dual Brahman, that's there, of course. Without it, nothing can be there. After all, when you see the snake, what's there? There is that appearance called a snake, and there is the rope, which is the ground of that appearance called a snake. And basically, it's the rope only. Let me repeat that. There's a way of looking at when you make a mistake about a snake, taking a rope to be a snake. Actually, there are three. You can sort of decompose that, analyze that into three aspects. One is, of course, there is a snake. Of course, there is a rope. That's the reality. That's always there, rope. And there is that appearance called a snake. In one sense, is means within quotes. It appears. So that snake, that erroneous, the snake born of the illusion of the snake, the error of the snake is there. And you can say the rope as a ground of that error, as a basis of that error. So it's almost like double counting the rope. Rope in itself, and the false snake, and the rope as the ground of that false snake. In the same way, consciousness, Satchidananda Brahman is there, and Maya and all its products, all of this, the causal body, subtle body, gross body, the causal universe, the subtle universe, and the gross universe, all of it is there. And that consciousness associated with this, they associated with Maya. So three things are there, or if you say that thou art, the word that, tat, can be decomposed, analyzed into these three aspects. I will not say three things, because they are not really three things. There are three aspects. One is the reality, pure consciousness. Second is Maya and its products. Third is consciousness, the same consciousness, but limited, um, in association with, obscured by Maya. To make it even more simple, the word that has these three components: Nirguna Brahman, Saguna Brahman, Maya. So that's the meaning of that. That means tat. Remember that what we are talking about is the sentence that thou art. So tatahi. So to explain further, ajnanadi samashtihi, ignorance, etc., the totality of ignorance is Maya. Etad upahitam sarvajnatvadi vishishtam chaitanyam. Consciousness which is associated with Maya and is qualified, has got qualities like knowing, omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent. Whose qualities are they? Not the ultimate reality. They are all qualities of God. All pervading reality. Whose quality? God. So you will say, isn't Nirguna Brahman the absolute reality, not all pervading? You can't say it's all pervading because the all is not there. This all, space and time and all these objects, they all come up because of Maya. Only because of Maya we say there is a universe and there are all these planets and stars and people and sentient beings, and all of this is because of Maya. Once Maya is admitted, then Brahman is seen to be pervading all of it. You say all pervading. Brahman is seen to be all knowing, Sarvagya, omniscient. Brahman is seen to be all powerful, Sarva Shaktiman. This is called God, Ishvara, Saguna Brahman. And behind all of this is, he says, anupahitam, the unassociated consciousness. And it's a very mild term which is used for the ultimate reality, which is the Nirguna Brahman, non-dual existence, consciousness, bliss. Etatrayam, these three together. Now, among these three, there's only one thing which is real. But these three together, these three aspects, we're just analyzing theoretically. Taptaya pindavat, like a heated iron ball. Ekatvena avabhasamanam, appears as one. Where does it appear as one? Take a look around. It's appearing to you right now. What is appearing to you is not theoretical also. You can actually analyze it. And for an enlightened person, immediately what is Maya and name and form and what is the reality becomes absolutely clear. Effortlessly it becomes clear to the enlightened person. To us, it appears as one mass. We say tables and chairs and people and computers and sky and earth and cities and body and mind and thoughts and feelings and emotions and this whole Vedanta and all of that. All of this taken together is the appearance. And there are, if you say crucially, or at the core of this, there are three things: Nirguna Brahman, Saguna Brahman, and Maya and its products. Okay. Now, number 145. Etad upadhyupahita adharabhutam anupaitam chaitanyam tatpadartha lakshyartho bhavati. The unassociated consciousness, which is the substratum of the limiting adjuncts and of Ishvara, which they limit, is the implied meaning of that. Okay. So we have to make a distinction between the direct meaning and the implied meaning. Vachyartha, Lakshyartha. The words used were Vachyartha and Lakshyartha. What we just saw a little while ago, the meaning of that is Nirguna Brahman plus Saguna Brahman plus Maya and its products. That is called the direct meaning of the word that. And now there is something called the implied meaning. What is this direct meaning and implied meaning? All of that will become clear as we go along. It's just showing us how what we all studied till now is helping us to understand that thou art. This parts will not become clear right now. It will become clear a little later. So he says there is something called the implied meaning. And the implied meaning of the term that is the pure consciousness only. Why do I say only? The direct meaning was three things: pure consciousness, Ishvara, Maya. And the implied meaning is only pure consciousness. See, pure consciousness, Ishvara, Maya. That is the meaning, that is the direct meaning, Vachyartha. Direct meaning, literal meaning, dictionary meaning, whatever you call it. So that is the Vachyartha, that's the technical term. The direct meaning of the term that, tat. And what is the implied meaning? Only pure consciousness. So not the, Ishvara, not Maya. Drop Ishvara and Maya, take the pure consciousness alone. That is the implied meaning. It's like saying rope and snake. So when you see the snake, there are actually three things there. There is the original rope itself. There is the snake born of our error. And there is the rope, which is the rope itself, which is the ground or the basis of that error. Now, if you want to take the direct meaning of the word that, but here it will mean the rope itself, the original rope itself, which has nothing to do with snake and errors and things like that, just the rope itself, the reality itself. So now we have implied meaning and direct meaning of what? Of the word that. Don't worry too much about it. All these things will be discussed in lots of detail very soon. It's going to start now. Now, so this is the direct meaning and implied meaning of the word that. There's one more word in that sentence, thou, tat tvamasi, you. What is the direct meaning of you and what is the implied meaning of you? We will see. 146. Agyaradi vyashtehe etadupahitam etadupahita alpagyatwadi vishishta chaitanyam etadanupahitam chaitatrayam taptaya pindavad ekatvain avabhasamanam tvam padavacyartha bhavati. Direct meaning of the word tvam, thou. Direct meaning of the word thou. What does it mean? What does it refer to? It refers to ignorance, etc. Ignorance, etc. means our causal body, subtle body, gross body. Karana Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, Sthula Sharira. Or if you want to go in further detail, the Anandamaya Kosha, the bliss sheath, the Vijnanamaya Kosha, the intellect sheath, the Manomaya Kosha, the mind sheath, the Pranamaya Kosha, the vital sheath, and the Annamaya Kosha, the physical body. All of that. Then Etad Upahitam, Chaitanyam. Consciousness associated with that. Consciousness associated with what? The three bodies or the five sheets, which is characterized by alpagyatva, little knowledge, little power. What are we talking about? You, right now, what we think about ourselves just now, take a look. He's talking nothing theoretical, just here, right now. Here is this body, and in that we find a mind, and beyond that, the blankness which we experience in deep sleep. This is ignorance and its products, or the ignorance and its effects. And then consciousness associated with it. Consciousness associated with it means the awareness which I have right now, I, Sarvapriyananda, this ego associated with this mind, with this history, this memory, this personality, this body. This is called the direct meaning of the word thou. It just means what you refer to when you say somebody, you, what you would refer to as that. That's the direct meaning of the word you. When you refer to any person, when you say you, I mean you. What do I mean by that? I mean that person. I mean the body, I mean the mind, I mean the history of that person, I mean the conscious being who is associated with all of that. That's the person. There is one more thing which we do not mean, but it's there. That is the pure consciousness there, which we do not mean because we don't know about it. Vedanta teaches us about it for the first time. The rest of it, we know about it. Physical body, mind, and awareness, who does not know? It's the common experience of all humanity. In fact, it's the experience of all living beings. Only humanity can think about it. So that body-mind complex plus pure consciousness is the direct meaning of the word thou. Direct meaning of the word thou is pure consciousness and the consciousness associated with body-mind and body-mind. I'll repeat. Pure consciousness, consciousness associated with body mind, and body mind. What is this? This is the direct meaning of the word thou, tvam. And then implied meaning of the word tvam. Let us see. 147. Etad upadhi upahita adhara etad upadhi upahita adharabhutam anupahitam pratyaganandam turiyam chaitanyam tvam pada lakshyartho bhavati. The implied meaning, the unassociated transcendent consciousness, the inward bliss, which is the substratum of the limiting adjunction of jiva, which they limit, is the implied meaning of the word thou. Basically, the implied meaning of the word thou is pure consciousness. What is it? If you do drigdrishya viveka, the witness consciousness which you discover, I am the witness of the mind, that is the implied meaning of the word thou, sakshi. Here the word used is body mind consciousness, the ground of that, the witness of this body mind, this jiva, that is the implied meaning of the word thou. And what is that? Turiyam. It is not the waker, not the dreamer, not the deep sleeper. It is the one consciousness which appears as waker, dreamer, deep sleeper. When you drop the waker, dreamer, and deep sleeperhood, the consciousness itself, if you take, that is the implied meaning of the word tvam, thou. Pratyagananda. It is the innermost consciousness. It is the so-called fourth. Why fourth? Not waker, not dreamer, not deep sleeper. The fourth. And it is Ananda, nature of bliss. So that is the implied meaning of the word tvam, thou. What was done till now? Just to tell us, to link what we had studied till now with what we are going to study now. What we are going to study now is the heart of Advaita Vedanta. We are ready now. You may not feel ready, you may feel confused, but don't worry, it will all fall into place. A huge system has been built up, and it's all going to fall into place nicely as we go into this study. Now, this will look very different from what we have done till now. Put the superimposition, desuperimposition, all of that on the shelf for the time being. Now we are going to, till now we had been doing a lot of metaphysics and epistemology. Now we are on world building and all of that. Now we are going into linguistics and grammar, because what we are dealing with now is a sentence. It's a sentence from the Vedas, specifically from the Upanishads. The particular one which is taken up for analysis, and always in traditional teaching of Advaita Vedanta, this is the one which is taken up. That thou art, Tattvamasi. I know of, it's very well known actually. When you talk about Vedanta, often people have heard about that thou art, Tattvamasi. I know of this one gentleman, I never met him, but he was in California, one of the disciples of Swami Prabhavanandaji. His name was Tattvamasi. I mean, he took the name Tattvamasi. All right. So we are ready to start now. So from text number 148 onwards, we will see the meaning of that thou art, or thou art that. And remember, this sentence comes from Chandogya Upanishad, 6th chapter. One day, I don't know when, someday, we will study the Chandogya Upanishad, the 6th chapter, and we'll see all this in its natural habitat. We'll see the animal in its natural habitat in the Chandogya Upanishad, where the father is telling the son, there thou means the sun, Shvetaketu. And that means the ultimate reality, saying, oh son, you are that ultimate reality. Tattvamasi. 9 times it will be said. But anyway, we're just taking the sentence out and we're trying to understand it now with all that we have read till now. 148. Atha Mahavakyartho Varnyate idam tattvamasi vakyam sambandhatrayena khandartha bodhakam bhavati. Atha Mahavakyartho Varnyate. Now is being described the meaning of the great Vedic dictum Mahavakyam. So now we are going to and try to understand, investigate the meaning of the Mahavakya. Why? Because it's the central teaching of the Advaita Vedanta. Why do you want to need this? Why do you need the central teaching of Advaita Vedanta? Central teaching is for knowledge. Why do you need this knowledge? To remove ignorance. Why do you need to remove ignorance? Because ignorance has created this superimposition. We need desuperimposition. And that's done by this knowledge. So it's absolutely vital. This is the central spiritual practice of Advaita Vedanta. I'll repeat again. What we're going to do is the central spiritual practice of Advaita Vedanta. Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Of what? We keep hearing. Hear and reflect and meditate. Hear and reflect and meditate what? This one. Idam tattvamasi vakyam. This sentence, vakyam. Which sentence? Tattvamasi, that thou art. Sambandhatrayena, with three relationships, with the help of three relationships. Akhandartha bodhakam bhavati, reveals the meaning, the undivided reality. Akhanda means undivided. Bodhakam, that which enlightens us, that which teaches us, which shows us. This sentence will enlighten us about that undivided reality. Notice that when we start the session every day, we chant Akhandam Satchidanandam, the one undivided existence consciousness place. So that will be revealed by this sentence. So in fact, this is a definition of a Mahavakya, a great sentence. How do you define? What is a great sentence? Usually Jiva Ishvara Aikya Bodhakam Vakyam, that which tells you the identity of Jiva, Tat and Tvam, Jiva and Ishvara. But a more precise and clear definition is this one, which is given in this book. Akhandartha Bodhakam Vakyam, the sentence which reveals or which teaches us about the undivided reality, about the oneness, that the universe is one with you. Swami Vivekananda said, the two sides to his teaching, that one is the divinity within ourselves, and the second one is the oneness of the universe. So this oneness of the universe is being taught here. So any sentence which talks about Akhandartha, the undivided reality, one reality, that is Mahavakya. Now, what was the new thing which was said here? In order to understand the Mahavakya, we need to go through three steps. These steps are called relationships, Sambandhatrayam, three relationships we have to apply. At this point, we may say, hey, wait a minute, I already understand. Tattvamasi means that thou art. I understand. I am Brahman. I understand it. No, you don't. As we shall see, it's not all that easy at all. As it'll be revealed to us. What are the problems? Every step, we'll have to overcome a number of problems to get greater clarity about what this teaching is. So three relationships or three steps we have to go through. It's a process like an algorithm, like a machine. You put the sentence Mahavakya Sat Tattvamasi at one end, and out will come the meaning at the other end. In between, there are these three steps or three processes. 149. Sambandhatrayam nama padayo samanadhikaranyam padarthayor visheshana visheshya bhavaha pratyagatma lakshanayoho lakshya lakshana bhava scheti. The three relationships are samanadhikaranyam, or the relationship between two words having the same substratum, visheshana visheshya bhava, the relationship between the imports of the two words qualifying each other so as to signify a common object, and lakshya lakshana bhava, or the relationship between the two words, an identical thing implied by them here, the inner self. Okay, this all sounds terribly complicated. Don't worry, it's actually pretty simple. So first of all, he gives us the names of the three steps, the names of the three relationships. The first name is, and the names are pretty formidable, it might scary. What are they saying? First name is Samanadhikaranyam. The second one is Visheshana Visheshya Bhava. Third one is Lakshya Lakshana Bhava. You translate into English, Samanadhikaranyam means the property of having the same substratum. What does that mean? We'll see. It's pretty easy actually. This Visheshana Visheshya Bhava means the adjectival relationship, adjective noun relationship. And the third one, Lakshya Lakshana Bhava, means the implied meaning, finding the implied meaning. So three steps we will go through. Common substratum, adjectival relationship, and implied meaning. At the end of it, we should get the clear meaning of that thou art. What is meant by that thou art? Okay. And at the end of it, you will end up saying that, I knew that. We didn't have to go through all of that, but you have to if you are going to be very careful and precise. And you will see why all this meticulous investigation is necessary. Otherwise, you will not end up with what you know. You already know it. All they're trying to say is that you are Brahman. I know. So you said, I knew this already. But we'll get a much clearer understanding how they come to this relationship and how they come to this understanding that you are Brahman. Before we go into it, the whole process is going to start, and it's going to take a long time to complete. Not very long, but still long enough. It's going to go on till 180. 180, from 148 to 180, and a difficult portion. Let me outline what's going to happen, and then we'll dive into it. The first one is Samanadikarnyam. What are we starting with? That thou art, Tattvamasi. Now what do? Samanadikarnyam. We have to understand the question first, then we'll understand the answer. Why we are taking these steps? We have to understand what is the problem here. We're trying to deal with the problem. A vakyam, a sentence. So I'll use the Sanskrit and the English. If you don't understand something, immediately you can ask. I will clarify. A sentence is a collection of words. In Sanskrit, the word for a word is pada. Pada samuha, collection of words in a particular relationship, is a sentence. Now the problem is this. Words mean things. Words mean they have got a meaning. They mean certain things. So when I say pen and book, and I have a pen and a book. So I've used three words. I, book, pen. And also I've used words like have, and so on. So pen is a word. It means this object. Book is a word. It means this object. So the word has something called a referent. A referent means the object which is meant by the word. In Sanskrit, it's called padartha. Pada, word. Padartha, referent. Pada, word. Padartha, the object. I'm reminded of the philosopher Wittgenstein in Cambridge. So it seems he held up a piece of chalk in the class once, and he said, "What is this?" And somebody said, "It's a chalk." And immediately Wittgenstein threw the chalk at him, which bounced off his forehead to get to his shock. And he said, "A chalk is a word. Was that a word?" So there's a word, pen, and there's an object here. There's a word, book, and there's an object. And there's a word, I, and there's an object here, this one. And then there are words which express relations. Have, number, a. I have a pen and a book. So these are different words. One thing you immediately notice, different words, they refer to different objects. How many objects are there? You can easily see I means one object, pen means one object, book means one object. So if you have a sentence, you will have different words, and different words mean different things. They have different referents. Immediate objection is that a sentence will always express duality. It cannot express non-duality. Why? Because a sentence is a collection of words, and words mean different things. And if there are really different things, then it is dualism or pluralism. It's not non-duality. If you're going to say sentence refers to akhandartha bodhakam vakyam, sentence will refer to one undivided reality. It cannot. Sentence is made of words. Words refer to different things. If there are different words, then they'll have different things. Then if there are different things, how can it be one thing? It's as simple as that. So something like tattvamasi, that thou art, its meaning will be what? Then what could be the meaning of that thou art? The meaning could be, in Sanskrit you can do this, tasya adhinatvamasi, thou art subservient to that. That is God, and thou art the servant of God. That is the Lord, is the king. God is the king, and you are the subject of God. You're different. You and God are different things, and there's a relationship between the two of you. Please accept dualistic Vedanta, not non-dualism. Do you see how the problem has been posed? Where it comes from? It comes from a simple fact about sentences. Sentences are made of words. Words refer to things. If there are many words, there are many things. If there are many things, it cannot be one thing. and therefore non-dualism is not possible. At least you cannot express it with a sentence. So this is called adhikarana. Adhikarana means locus. Locus, the thing to which a word refers. So the word pen is a word, and its adhikarana, locus, is this object. The word pen refers, the referent is called the adhikarana. And a sentence will have multiple adhikaranas: pen, book, eye. And so it is called vyadhikaranam. Vyadhikaranam. Vyadhikaranam in Sanskrit means different locus or loci. Many words referring to different things. They're going in different ways. The classic example is Bala Dandena Gamanayati. This is a classic example used by Sanskrit Pandits, that the boy is bringing the cow with a stick. So you can imagine an Indian village at sunset, and the boy has been sent out by his father, fetch the cows back from the field, and he takes the stick to shoo the cows back into the cow pen. And so the boy, stick, cow, and the action of bringing, they're all different things. So the words refer to different things. How can it be one reality? It's multiple things are there. So this is called Vyadhikarana Vakyam, a sentence which has multiple loci, multiple adhikaranas. Okay, it talks about many things. It cannot be one thing. Now at this point, we point out, we means the non-dualists, we point out, you're right, but all sentences are not like this. There are sometimes sentences which refer to we have many words. These words have different meanings, but they all refer to the same thing. How is that possible? I say, I have a black pen here. Black refill pen. If I say black refill pen, this is a black refill pen, then all the words in this sentence, this refers to what? This. Black refill pen. Pen refers to what? This. Black refers to what? This pen. Refill refers to what? This pen. All of the words are meaning this one object. So when we salute Vishnu Sahasranama, the 1,000 names of Vishnu, Vishwang Vishnu Vashatkara Bhuta Bhavya Bhavat Prabhu, all the words in those verses, 1,000 names, what do they refer to? 1,000 words. Do they refer to 1,000 different entities? No, they all refer to the same entity in different ways. So when I say this, it's pointing out to this object. Pen, it's naming the object itself. Black, it's giving the color of the pen. Refill, it's telling me of the nature of the pen, the model of the pen. And similarly, Vishwam Vishnur Vashatkara Bhuta Bhavya Bhavat Prabhu, these are names of the Lord. And they express different aspects of God. But they all refer to God. They all mean God. They have many, many words, but they all refer to the same locus. If a sentence has the same locus and having a lot of words, it is called Saman Adhikarana Vakya. Saman Adhikarana. Adhikarana, locus. Saman, same. Vyadhikarana, different locus, different loci. Saman Adhikarana, same locus. There are such sentences, and our claim is Tattvamasi, that thou art, is this kind of a sentence. It is a Samana Adhikarana Vakya. So a sentence having the property of having the same locus in spite of having number of words, that property is called Samana Adhikaranyam. It's a big word. It just means having the nature of one locus or one referent with many words referring to the same object. The classic example is Nilotpalam, blue lotus. Blue lotus. So blue lotus, what does lotus refer to? The flower. What does blue refer to? That flower, the color of that flower. But they're both referring to the same object. Where is the blue? In that object. Where is the lotus? That object. So the both are the same object and they're not different, but they're different words. Similarly, that thou art refers to Samanadhikaranyam, not Vyadhikaranam. This is our contention. Okay. Now we move on. So this is the first step. The first step is to prove, though your sentence has many words, it refers to the same referent. So it is our contention. Tattvamasi refers to one reality. Then the next problem will come is that the opponent says, yeah, sure. But notice, Samanadhikaranam Vakyam, that is the same locus, they have the nature of this, that second relationship will come now, adjectival relationship, Visheshana Visheshya Bhava. What happens is, you gave the example of Nilotpalam, blue lotus. Blue lotus, in blue lotus, it is true, blue and lotus are intimately connected. They refer to the same flower. What is blue? That flower, lotus. And what is lotus? That blue flower. So blue lotus, Nilotpalam, it refers to the same object. But blue and lotus are not the same thing. Blue is a color, lotus is a flower. Blue is a property, lotus is a substance. There's a guna and guni. It's a substance and property. It's a quality. Blue is a quality. Tall man, tall and man are not the same thing. When you say black pen, the example you gave, Swami, black pen, black and refill and pen are not the same thing. Black and refill are the qualities of this pen, are the properties of this pen. But just, it could be a blue pen, it could be a yellow pen, whatnot. And they are not the same thing. Qualities and the substances are not the same thing. They are intimately connected. What is the connection between quality and the substance? Adjective and noun. That's why this is called Visheshana Visheshya Bhava. Visheshana, adjective. Visheshya, the noun, possessor of the quality and the quality. So what will happen is, you should accept that Tattvamasi is a sentence of this kind. I agree, Tat and Tvam are referring to the same one reality, but one is an adjective to the other. One is a property holder, another one is a property. What would that be like? How can one be a property? Can we individuals be the property of Brahman? Yeah, come to my camp. This is called Vishishtadvaita. You have been lured into the camp of Vishishtadvaita. Brahman is one reality whose qualities are, whose adjectives are Jiva and Jagat. Jiva, Jagat, Vishishta Brahma, Vishishtadvaita. Qualified monism. This is what we are trying to tell you. You are right. It is one reality. It's one organic reality. But there are distinct parts to it. The oneness is qualified by the presence of many, many jiva, sentient beings like you, and many insentient things also. Chit, Achit, Vishishta Brahma, Vishishta Advaita. Brahman, the ultimate reality, qualified by, look at the word, qualified by. By what? Innumerable sentient beings like us, and innumerable insentient entities like matter and space and time and planets and stars and all sorts of things. All of that together, there's an underlying unity. You are right, there is a oneness. And this whole thing together is called Vishishtadvaita. Agree to it? We sort of, we say, no, this is not exactly what we mean. But there's no way out. You have argued yourself into our camp. You said that it is one reality. And if you come out of the camp, the other camp is waiting, the dualistic camp. You say there are different realities. If you say one reality, the only way it can be one reality is qualified and qualifier, adjective and noun. What else can there be? Then we say, yes, we agree that it is qualified. But in the case of that thou art, there's no meaning. The meaning doesn't come out the way you are putting it. Why? Because that thou art is like the sentence, so I am Devadatta. This is that Devadatta. So this is the example which we use. This is that Devadatta. This is that Devadatta means, Devadatta is just, like just the guy, whoever, you can get any name. That Devadatta whom I saw 30 years ago is this Devadatta I'm seeing now. That Devadatta whom I saw in Mumbai is this Devadatta I'm seeing in Manhattan. That Devadatta who I saw was young is this Devadatta now I see is old. That Devadatta who had a full head of hair is this Devadatta who is now balding. That Devadatta who was lean and fit is this Devadatta who has a paunch and slowing down. This is that Devadatta. Now, they are not two. There is one. And it's not that one qualifies the other. It's not that one is the adjective and one is the noun. Both are the same reality. It does not matter one was old and one is old and one was young at that time. One was in the past, one is in the present, one was in Mumbai, one is now in Manhattan. We disregard all of that and we imply it is the same person. We do it all the time. It's a common experience we have. We do it all the time. We disregard many aspects and say it is the same, literally one person, not property, not adjectival, not different also. And we claim that thou art is like that sentence. So I am Devadatta. It's not like blue lotus. The sentient being is not a quality of the ultimate reality. And the sentient being and the ultimate reality are one and the same, but you have to take the implied meaning. That's why you see we talked about the implied meaning of that, the direct meaning of that, implied meaning of thou, the direct meaning of thou, and so on. So that we'll have to take the implied meaning, and for that we go to the third relationship, which is called Lakshya Lakshana Bhava, implied meaning. Now, when you say relationship, it's always between two things. The first relationship, remember, it was Samanadhikaranyam. Samanadhikaranyam. What is Samanadhikaranyam? It is the relationship between the words. Relationship between the words. The words have the same locus. What are the words? That and thou have the same locus. The second relationship was between the words and their objects. The words and the objects. The Visheshana Visheshya Bhava. The word itself and what does it imply. So like a blue lotus. The blue color and the blue and the lotus, the flower. What is the relationship between their objects? The objects, not the word and the object, between the objects. Relationship between the objects, padartha. In Sanskrit, the first relationship, Samanadhikaranyam, is between the pada, the words, tat and tvam. And the second relationship, Visheshana Visheshya Bhava, is between the padartha, the objects to which they are referred. So blue lotus, it's not between blue and lotus, it's between the color blue and the flower lotus. The color blue is the property and the flower lotus is the property holder. So now we're asking, what is the relationship between that and thou? Not the words. The relationship between the words is the first one. They have the same locus. Now the relationship between the objects denoted by that and thou. Now you'll see why it was important to find out what is the direct meaning of that, what is the direct meaning of thou, and what is the implied meaning, and so on. And the final is the relationship. The implied meaning is the relationship between the sentence that thou art and its meaning, and the reality it refers to. And notice one very crucial thing. It is between the Vakya and the Artha, Lakshyartha, the ultimate reality it is pointing to, pure consciousness. Notice one thing. The relationship between the sentence that thou art and what it is revealing, pure consciousness, Brahman, whatever it is a relationship, implied relationship, implied meaning. The sentence is a pointer to that relationship. It is not directly telling you about Brahman. And see what a crucial part of the puzzle this is. Because remember, we have always said the ultimate reality is beyond language. The ultimate reality is beyond language. The absolute Nirguna Brahman cannot be revealed by language. Now, if you say it might be, like puzzle-less, but aren't you trying to say that thou art, this is language. And this language is telling us about the ultimate reality. Yes, it is. And no, it is not. Because, and the final analysis, when we come to the third stage, we will say it is only an implied meaning. Meaning, thereby that it's only a pointer. It is pointing at something that you have to grasp intuitively. So it is not that language is directly revealing Brahman. The direct meaning of the word that, thou, the direct meaning of the sentence that thou art cannot reveal Brahman. And therefore we preserve that the teaching that the ultimate reality is beyond language. It's beyond language, But it's not beyond the strategies employed by the Upanishads. Strategies like superimposition, desuperimposition, neti neti, not this, not this, paradoxical language, and this one, which we will use in this book, implied meaning. Implied meaning is basically a pointer. It points us in the right direction, after which you have to get it yourself. Okay. So, 3 steps. Samanadhikaranyam, same locus. This is a relationship between what? Between the words. What words? That and thou. Tat and tvam. The second relationship we'll go to is Visheshana Visheshya Bhava. Adjective, noun, adjectival relationship. And what's the relationship between what? The relationship is always between 2 things. So relationship between what? Between the objects denoted by those words. What that means and what thou means between those 2 objects. What is the relationship? And finally, Lakshya Lakshana Bhava, implied meaning. Implied meaning is relationship between what? Between the sentence that thou art and the ultimate reality which it points to. It's an implied meaning. Indirect, not directly. Okay. This is the journey that we shall undertake. It's a map I've given you. Of course, it will be done in more slowly with more detail. Where did you get all this fancy stuff? So he quotes from a past master. This is from Naishkarmya Siddhi, text number 150. Taduktam samanadhikaranyam cha visheshana visheshyata lakshya lakshana sambandha padartha pratyagatmanam. Compare. The relations are the relation between 2 words having the same substratum, that between 2 words qualifying each other so as to signify a common object, and the relationship between 2 words and an identical thing implied by them, here the inner self. And this is a quote from Naishkarmya Siddhi. Naishkarmya Siddhi is a masterpiece written by Sureshwaracharya. Sureshwaracharya was one of the direct disciples of Shankaracharya. He is known as the Vartikakara. Shankaracharya is known as Bhashyakara. Bhashyakara means the great commentator, the commentator, because he wrote commentaries on Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, and Brahma Sutras. So he's known as the Bhashyakara, commentator. Now, on his commentaries, further sub-commentaries were written. And the one who wrote these sub-commentaries, the primary one among them, is his disciple Sureshwaracharya, who was a very learned, probably the same as Mandana Mishra, who was the great Vedic scholar, Mimamsa scholar, who was defeated by Shankaracharya in a debate, as the story goes. But even if he was not, Sureshwaracharya is, of course, a great master of Advaita Vedanta. And the sub-commentaries he wrote, that's a particular form of sub-commentary called Vartika. So each of the sub-commentaries has a particular form and a definition and a purpose. So the Bhashya commentary brings out the inner meaning of the original text according to a paradigm. So Shankaracharya has a paradigm of Advaita Vedanta and is interpreting Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Sutra in that paradigm. So his commentary brings out that meaning. Now, it requires further elucidation. So that is done by the Vartika. And Vartika is all in verse. So you have to write this huge, voluminous sub-commentaries, all in verses. So Shankaracharya, for example, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma in Taittiriya Upanishad, one sentence. Infinite existence consciousness is Brahman. And Shankaracharya writes a couple of pages of commentaries on that. And Sureshwaracharya, if I'm not mistaken, writes more than 200 Vartika verses on that one sentence. So imagine how difficult it is. I remember at Harvard, this professor, always the students will groan if you give them assignments, if they're long, so the professor gave us this end-term paper, which had to be 25 pages. And all the students, myself not excluded, we all, no, 25 is too long. And then he said, all right, it can be 12 pages, but then it has to be all in verse. You have to write in poetry, your final paper. And we no, that's too difficult. We'll write it in prose. So the Vartika are in verse form. What does it do? Ukta nukta duruktam cha. So whatever has been said by the commentator Shankaracharya has to be elucidated further, and whatever has been left unsaid by Shankaracharya, ukta anukta, that has to be like fill in the blanks. That is his job, to Sureshwara's job, to fill in the blanks. Duruktam, that which has been said but it's difficult, it has to be cleared up, clarified. That's also his job. Ukta anukta duruktam, that is the job of the Vartikakara. But apart from these sub-commentaries which he wrote sub-commentary on the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Bhashya. Shankaracharya wrote Bhashya on Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and the Vartika on the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad Bhashya was written by Sureshwaracharya. Shankaracharya wrote the commentary Bhashya on Taittiriya Upanishad, and the Vartika on the Taittiriya Upanishad commentary was written by Sureshwaracharya. Shankaracharya wrote the beautiful Dakshinamurti Stotra, composed it, hymn to Dakshinamurti. And the Vartika on that, called the Manasollasa, was written by Sureshwaracharya. Now, Sureshwaracharya composed an independent work, a masterpiece called Naishkarmya Siddhi, the attainment of perfect actionlessness. Not that he was lazy, perfect actionlessness. It is Brahman. Actionlessness, Naishkarmya Siddhi is Brahman, realizing that it's beyond all change. So it's an independent work. It's advanced, so that's the reason why we don't study it directly. Maybe one day we will, but that's not on the table right now. But this is a quote from the Naishkarmya Siddhi. He is showing, our author is showing, that I am in line with someone no less than Sureshwaracharya, who has said, to understand the Mahavakya, Padartha, the Mahavakya, you need to go through these three steps. Samanadhikaranyam, one locus or one adhikarana. Visheshana Visheshyata, the adjectival relationship. And Lakshya Lakshana Sambandha, implied meaning. By this, you realize Padartha Pratyagatmana. You realize the inner self, pure consciousness. That is the reality by these three steps. Okay, done. Let's quickly look at the activity in the chat. And then we'll see. So we'll take up these steps. We have not yet started, actually. I've just given you an outline of what to expect. And we will go through that slowly over the next few weeks. All right. Girish says the Panchabhuta theory of the 5 basic elements, building blocks of the Vyavaharik domain, appears to be as reductionist as modern science, where aggregates of elementary particles make up all the matter. Is that accurate? If so, it means that in Advaita, non-dual pure consciousness accommodates a phenomenological domain where a dualistic-based reductionist view prevails. Yes, it's accurate as far as it goes, because the reductionism to the 5 elements is not final. It's actually not even the 5 elements. It's all back to Maya. And even that is not final. It is back to consciousness associated with Maya, Ishvara. Even that is not final. It's actually nothing at all. It's just Nirguna Brahman. So it's like reducing the whole film to the film screen. So as a step in between, if you say in the movie, this entire universe and all the actors and all the heroes and villains are nothing but atoms and subatomic particles. But that's also not true. Even there's no atoms and subatomic particles in those characters and objects do not exist. They are an illusion playing upon a screen. So ultimately it is screen plus illusion. Ultimately there's no reality of the illusion also. It is the screen alone. So reductionism is when you reduce something to its building blocks, analyze it down to the ground, and dismiss all emergentism. So that, at a certain level of complexity, certain things emerge which cannot be reduced to the fundamental building blocks of the universe. So that is when reductionism becomes a problem. But here, ultimately, we're not even talking about reductionism. We are talking about an order of reality which is entirely different from this order of reality. You are not saying, for example, it would be reductionist if you said the snake is ultimately composed of a rope. But you're not saying that. You're saying that there is no snake at all. There is really a rope. So that's not reductionist. Then, put in another way, what I'm saying is both can be accommodated. very reductionist, materialistic reductionist approach, and an emergentist, like epiphenomenalist approach. Both can be accommodated in Advaitic framework, with the proviso that both are false from an Advaitic perspective. That's all. From the ultimate reality. But within the domain, all of science, if you say, no, science works, Advaita has absolutely no problem with science working. Fine. Because Advaita is not challenging that. When Dimitri says, in order to see all as one, the instruments of knowledge needs to change, right? We have to look into this. This is actually a very, very tricky question. I don't know in what sense you mean it. Instruments of knowledge, let me take it at a very simple level. To know anything, you need an instrument of knowledge. Knowledge is called prama, and the source of knowledge is called pramana. All knowledge has to come from a valid instrument of knowledge. You can't just say that I know it by my genius. But what is this genius composed of? What is the basis of it? I have to give some basis. I saw it, or I heard it, or I inferred it by a valid scientific process. These are sources of knowledge. Now, what Advaita Vedanta would say is, the Vedas are the sources of knowledge. In what sense? They are the record of the experiences of the rishis. It is revealed to the rishis in this way. Now, do you have to believe in it? No. What you do in Advaita Vedanta specifically, not other parts of the Veda. In Advaita Vedanta, what we are doing is, when it says Tat Tvamasi, you're not being asked to believe that you're Brahman. In fact, you must not. You must analyze it like we're going to do, threadbare, and it will point to something in our own experience which they're trying to point out. So this whole way, this pramana, so the Upanishad is a pramana. That is the source of knowledge. That's the instrument of knowledge, which gives us the knowledge about Brahman. But the whole way it works is sort of indirectly, because ultimately we'll come to an implied meaning, a pointer, not a direct revelation. So it's definitely not something you're supposed to believe in. But it's also definitely not something that language is expressing. It is unique that way. And because it is our own reality, and it's a luminous reality, it can be pointed out. Okay. This is the preliminary answer to that question. Instrument of knowledge needs to change? No. You need a particular instrument of knowledge, particular pramana. It is called Shruti pramana. And I told you how this Shruti pramana functions. It is indirectly, it points out. You have to grasp it. Now, if you mean that the instrument of knowledge in the sense of the mind, yes, it needs to change in the sense it has to be purified, it has to be focused, and that is the purpose of all the sadhanas. The fourfold qualifications we talked about, Viveka, Vairagya, all the qualifications of an Advaitic seeker. In one sense, you can say they are all perfecting the instrument of knowledge, which is the mind. So these are all preliminary answers. The real answer to this is, actually, I don't know if you're asking that. It's a huge problem which was first caught by Nagarjuna 2000 years ago. He said, I'll just give you the question. What is the problem? I will not go into the answer. He said, you see, if you say this is all an appearance, then you are denying the reality of this world, correct? But the instruments of knowledge with which you are denying this world are also part of this world, correct? Then you're saying that the instruments of knowledge are also not ultimately real, right? Then the conclusion that the knowledge that they generate can also not be ultimately real. Why should I accept what you say? In fact, the way they put it is, why should we admit these people into our philosophical discourse? Because they do not accept the instruments of knowledge. It's a very deep question, because the entire philosophical discourse in ancient India was based on what is called pramanas, a mutually agreed systems of knowledge. If we do not agree on what we are talking about, how can we debate? If you challenge everything that I hold, that I'm saying something, if you say whatever you say is false, then how will I debate with you? So the question was raised by the realists, the dualistic philosophers, the Nyaya philosophers, and later on the dualistic Vedanta school also, against the non-dualists. First, the Nyaya school raised it against Nagarjuna, the Buddhists, especially the emptiness people. And later, the dualistic schools of Vedanta raised it against us. Why should we at all take these people seriously? Because they challenge the very validity of knowledge. So this is actually a very serious question. We will not allow you to enter this debate at all. Because to enter the debate, you must take seriously pramanas, sources of knowledge. Something must be established. It doesn't matter, maybe your point of view or my point of view, but all points of view are wrong. This, how can we even start a debate? So this was responded to by Sri Harsha in his masterpiece Khandana Khanda Khadya, written about 1,000 years ago. The name of the book is Khandana Khanda Khadya, which just literally means cookies. Cookies of refutation. Khanda Khadya means sweets or cookies. Khandana means refutation. So they are cookies. And he gives an answer to that, why we should allow people like, and there he points out, there is fundamentally no difference between us, the non-dualists, and the Madhyamaka Shunyavada philosophers of Buddhism. This is one of the few places where a traditional Advaita master has accepted the commonality between Advaita Vedanta and Nagarjuna's Shunyavada Buddhism. Okay, Shivapriya had raised her hand, so I should give her a chance to speak before we end. Go ahead.
Yes, Swamiji, thank you. Actually, you just said in the last, that instrument of knowledge on that, what I'm going through all these classes. I hear some of the lectures. At the end, I have found that there is a thin line between this Brahman and this mind, because when I'm saying I am Brahman, Brahman is beyond knowledge. I can say I have the knowledge of Brahman. So till the time you say I'm enlightened, a person is enlightened, it means he has the knowledge of Brahman. As soon as he is Brahman, because Brahman is not even blissful. Like I am in bliss. So the emptiness.
You're going all over the place. You have to
I know.
Sharpen your question.
So what I mean that emptiness is the ultimate reality, because Brahman is not even a bliss, because I am in bliss all the time. It's a feeling of mind. It's again, there has to be a little bit of mind. Otherwise,
yeah, but okay, I'll just stop you there. Brahman is bliss, a continuous feeling of bliss. That's not the meaning at all. That's why it's a natural mistake to make. You look up my lectures online. There's one lecture, In Search of Bliss. It talks about the Anand aspect of Brahman. Brahman is bliss does not mean that you will be in bliss all the time. It's just a confusion created by the word. When you say Brahman is Ananda, there's a difference between Ananda and Anandamaya. Anandamaya means pervaded by Ananda, or a modification of Ananda, which is experienced in the mind, which you are calling a feeling of bliss. That will come and go. That will increase and decrease.
Yeah.
And that is not what is meant by Brahman. When you say Brahman is Ananda, in Upanishad, it's Chandogya Upanishad defines Ananda, the very Ananda nature of Brahman, as the very infinitude of Brahman. The Purnatvam, the completeness of Brahman. It's not a feeling.
Yeah, Brahman is not a feeling.
Just notice this. I'll end it here. Just notice this thing. When you say Brahman is existence, it does not mean Brahman is an existing thing.
Yes.
When you say Brahman is consciousness, it does not mean the Brahman is a conscious event in the mind. Thoughts, feelings, emotions, perceptions. This is what we mean normally by consciousness. This is not what is meant by Brahman.
So I cannot say I am Brahman.
No,
I can say I have the knowledge of Brahman.
Just the opposite. You cannot say you have the knowledge of Brahman. That is all that we have been discussing.
I am Brahman as long as I'm thinking I am Brahman. I am actually experiencing. Like I have learned. Like I have learned till end. I have to exist. This body, mind. It has to be there to say I am Brahman. So
okay, I will leave it there. This body mind has to be there to say I am Brahman.
It's separate, like body, mind, Brahman. It is separate.
No, what I'm saying is this body mind has to be there. Notice what you said. I'm putting the emphasis on the word say. This body mind has to be there to say that I am Brahman, to think that I am Brahman, to express that I am Brahman. Obviously, I need a body. So, for example, I'll give you an example. To say that I am happy, I need a tongue. But happiness is not something that you say, it's a feeling in the mind. You're only expressing it through your tongue. You're saying, I am happy. Who is happy? Is the tongue happy? No. Happiness is a feeling in the mind. Suppose I am dumb, I cannot speak. Does that mean that I cannot be happy? I can be happy. I'm just not unable to express it. So, thinking that I am Brahman requires the mind. Without mind, no thinking is possible.
That what I am saying, thinking.
Expressing that I am Brahman requires the tongue. Without tongue, no expression is possible. But being Brahman does not require mind or the tongue. Just think about it. All right. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu